Okay, I want to start by saying no one can really say whether or not decisions made in the world of Formula One are the right ones or not. People love to throw that word around and act like they know exactly what would have happened if someone had made a different decision, but there are so many factors that affect how a decision pans out, and I personally think it's impossible to say. However, the fact that people love to throw that word around is one of the reasons I wanted to make this video. Partly also because I think I just wanted to make a point, because I really don't agree with all the people that say, oh, he should have stayed at Red Bull. But I also just wanted to do some research and apply some context to the situation. Some nuance, if you will. And I will. I'm going to give you an overview of Daniel Ricciardo's career leading up to his decision to part ways with Oracle Red Bull Racing Formula One team. And then I'm going to break down what I think were the key influencing factors towards him making that decision and my own opinion on said decision. And then I'm just going to continue with a breakdown of his career after he left Red Bull and discuss why I think some of his decisions post leaving Red Bull are actually much more interesting to me, and I never really see people discussing them, so we're going to do that now.
Hey guys, Daniel Ricciardo here. We are going to go behind the scenes at Infinity Red Bull Racing. Cars are down that way and my room is across here.
Daniel Ricciardo made his way up to F1 through Red Bull's Young Driver program. He was promoted to their F1 team in 2014. Red Bull as a team had 3 race wins that year and they were all Daniel's. Not 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel's, much to everyone's surprise. Daniel finished 3rd in the Driver Championship in his rookie year, taking his maiden win at the Canadian Grand Prix with further victories in Hungary and Belgium. When Vettel announced his move to Ferrari for the 2015 season, Daniel was branded Red Bull's golden boy, the number 1 driver. However, with the growing dominance of the Mercedes team and problems with their Renault engine, Daniel's 2015 season wasn't quite as impressive as his rookie season. The car wasn't cooperating and Red Bull just weren't as competitive as a team. Daniel managed to bag 2 podiums in 2015 in Hungary and Singapore, and he finished 8th overall in the championship, 3 points behind his teammate Daniel Kvyat, although he did outqualify his teammate 14-5 over the course of the season.
Felt that should have been me and it wasn't, and I don't have the trophy, so yeah, I may win it in the future, but this is one I'll never get back, so.
Missed opportunities in 2016 were frustrating as Red Bull were back to race-winning shape. One in Spain, where a questionable strategy from the team meant that he dropped off the podium despite leading the early stages of the race. The loss was made even tougher by the fact that the win went to his new teammate Max Verstappen. Then later in Monaco, Daniel flew to pole position, but after a very long pit stop in which his team took almost 40 seconds to ready a set of tyres, he lost the lead and came in 2nd behind Lewis Hamilton. He finally snagged a victory at the Malaysian Grand Prix, and after a very strong second half of the season, he finished 3rd in the championship behind both Mercedes drivers. With 256 points to close the season, Daniel was comfortably the most successful non-Mercedes driver of the year. The 2017 season got off to a difficult start. Daniel's home race was a disaster with problem after problem and he didn't finish the race. His 2nd DNF at 4 races came at the Russian Grand Prix, but a 3rd place at the Spanish Grand Prix marked the beginning of 5 consecutive podiums. Ricciardo really showed his skill in the car over the next few races, executing a sensational 3-car overtake in Azerbaijan, a race he went on to win, and a stunning drive in Hungary where he fought up 14 places from P19 to P5. However, after a collision with teammate Verstappen, his race in Hungary came to an early end. In Monza, he qualified 3rd, but was demoted to 16th when the team was forced to add additional power unit elements to the car. But he didn't let that stop him. Another spectacular drive meant he finished that race in 4th place. Ricciardo then snagged 3 podiums in Singapore, Malaysia and Japan, which were immediately followed by 2 consecutive retirements in the US and Mexico. After retaining 4th in the Drivers' Championship for much of the season, a 3rd retirement in the last 4 races at Abu Dhabi saw Ricciardo drop down to 5th in the championship with 200 points, 5 points behind Raikkonen. The 2018 season had a promising start. Daniel won 2 of the 6 opening races. He took a commanding victory in the Chinese Grand Prix, winning by almost 9 seconds after starting 6th on the grid. Unfortunately, in Azerbaijan, Daniel was fighting for 4th place with Verstappen, and on lap 40, both drivers collided. Ricciardo's front wing made heavy contact with his teammate's rear, and the incident caused both drivers to retire. Following the race, Red Bull team principal Christian Horner stated that both drivers were ordered to apologise at the Red Bull factory. According to racefans.net, Daniel's faith in the team was undermined by the collision, which he felt the team did too little to help avoid. 2 races later, Ricciardo managed to hold off Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari to take his first Monaco Grand Prix victory and his first Grand Prix win from pole position, even after having to manage loss of power due to a power output issue throughout the race. His result would lift him to 3rd in the drivers' standings, but this win would would be his last podium of the season. He finished 4th in Canada and in the following race in France. More disappointment came on his birthday weekend at the Austrian Grand Prix, where he retired with an exhaust failure on lap 54. An uncompetitive weekend followed at the British Grand Prix, where he finished 5th after a DRS failing in qualifying. He started the German Grand Prix from the back of the grid after changing power unit components, but suffered yet another engine failure during the race. Bad luck continued to follow Ricciardo in Hungary, as a spin for Lance Stroll early in a wet session prevented him from completing a lap and knocked him out in Q2. He went on to finish the race in 4th. On the 3rd of August, Ricciardo announced his shock departure from Red Bull by the end of the 2018 season. He would suffer consecutive retirements in Belgium and Italy, being caught up in a first lap incident in the former and sustaining a clutch issue in the latter. He suffered 6 reliability-related retirements over the season. At the Japanese Grand Prix, Daniel suffered yet another qualifying setback, being hit by an exhaust failure that confined him to 15th on the grid, having not been able to set a lap in Q2. Fortunately, he was able to replicate his Hungary drive and pushed all the way to 4th place. He did manage to secure pole at the Mexican Grand Prix ahead of teammate Verstappen by 0.027 seconds. A slow start, however, dropped him into 3rd, and he was later passed by Vettel as well after the pit stops. He did manage to catch up to Hamilton to reclaim 3rd place, but to no avail, as his car suffered a hydraulics issue on lap 61, forcing him to retire for the 8th time, tied for the most retirements in the 2018 season. After the race, Daniel insisted that his car was cursed and said that he didn't see the point in doing the final 2 races of the season. An engine penalty in Brazil dropped him to 11th, but he only narrowly missed the podium to Raikkonen by 0.4 seconds in another incredible drive. A wrong strategy in the final race of the season meant that he finished 4th again, and he finished 6th in the Driver Championship overall with 170 points. So, let's discuss his move. Are you ready? Are you ready to discuss?
The 4th time in Formula One, Daniel Ricciardo stands on top of the podium.
In the world of Formula One, it's very common to see up-and-coming drivers branded as world champion material. I can completely understand why. People get very excited by the idea of new talent, new driving styles, fresh faces coming in to disrupt the grid, and examples I can think of recent years are Max Verstappen, who I will come back to, Oscar Piastri, who was a part of Alpine's driving academy and had a very impressive resume coming into Formula One. He was Formula 3 champion in 2020 and Formula 2 champion in 2021, just to name his most recent titles. He had a very impressive rookie year, and his results are only getting better the longer he's in Formula One. Dare I say there are eyes on him this year to potentially be winning a world championship. And another example would be Kimi Antonelli, who has been described multiple times as the next Max Verstappen. 2025 is his rookie season in Formula One, and of course he is in Mercedes alongside George Russell after Lewis Hamilton decided to move to Ferrari. And he's had some very, very impressive race results so far. I'm very interested to see how his season pans out. My point is, Formula One gets very excited when new drivers come onto the scene, and it's great to see the next generation coming up, but I do think it adds an insane amount of pressure to the driver in question. Suddenly there are these huge expectations put upon them, even more so than having the opportunity to drive with the top 20 drivers in the world. There's already enough pressure to perform and get the results for the team so that they don't lose their seat, and then suddenly the media's throwing around the phrase future world champion, sometimes before a full season has even been completed. And it's no secret that in his Red Bull days, this was a phrase used to describe Daniel Ricciardo. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I think it makes Daniel's career trajectory so much more interesting. If someone doesn't perform the way they're expected to, they're out. That's the way of the sport. But the untapped potential that Daniel was always believed to have, I think has potentially given him a few more chances than the average driver would get. If people believe that a driver is world champion material, of course they're going to employ them and try to win with them. Dare I say, regardless of results? That might be taking it a bit far. A lot of Daniel's missed wins and missed podiums could be argued to be circumstantial, just a result of things that were completely out of his control. But that's not an excuse that works for every driver. I could name quite a few right now that have had really bad car troubles and have been binned off because they're not getting the results that the team wants, even though it may not be their fault. I think it's worth mentioning here that Daniel is extremely likeable as a person. He is widely liked within the paddock. You won't really come across anyone that's met him that has a bad thing to say about him, and he's kind of known by the fans for his huge smile and just sort of radiant energy. me. Who wouldn't want to give him a chance at winning a world title? Who wouldn't want to see him win a world title? He's incredibly easy to root for. It's not surprising at all that he quickly became the star of Netflix's Drive to Survive when it aired in 2019. So where did it all go wrong?
Well, firstly, top of the morning to you, Graham. And
I'm Scottish.
oh, Scottish. I wanted you to ask me a question all weekend. I was waiting to say that and I just blew it.
Before I discuss the Max Verstappen of it all, I want to do a quick breakdown of the 2018/2019 grids. Daniel Ricciardo was regarded incredibly highly as a driver, so I find it very interesting how little interest he seemed to be getting from the bigger teams. It's not because he wasn't skilled in his field, it's not because the people who were commenting on his ability were lying. I think it had a huge amount to do with the timing of his move. The top teams at the time were Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. Moving from Red Bull, his ideal world would be one where he moves to Mercedes or Ferrari. If we're judging it from the constructors' results for the 2018 season, going to Renault, which is what he decided to do, was technically a step down. This was one of the many reasons why Christian Horner thought that his move was kind of crazy. Why go to a quote-unquote lesser team? But Mercedes and Ferrari had their team dynamics locked down. By the end of 2018, Lewis Hamilton was a 5-time world champion. Mercedes had employed Valtteri Bottas as his teammate from 2017, and after the chaos of Hamilton versus Rosberg, it was very clear what the dynamic was between Hamilton and Bottas. Toto Wolff, CEO and team principal of Mercedes F1 team, was not about to disrupt that dynamic that was very much working for the team. Don't fix what ain't broken. Lewis's 7th and most recent championship win was in 2020, and Bottas left the team after the 2021 season. Now, correlation does not imply causation. I'm not saying that Lewis couldn't have won without Valtteri. Obviously, Lewis's own driving has a hell of a lot to do with why he's won so many championships, but it was very helpful to have a teammate who wasn't fighting him tooth and nail. Nico Rosberg, you will always be famous. And then over in Ferrari, for the 2018 season, we had 4-time world champion Sebastian Vettel and 2007 world champion Kimi Räikkönen. Now, Kimi announced his departure from the team by the end of the 2018 season, and Charles Leclerc stepped up from Alfa Romeo to fill his seat for 2019. Leclerc is the youngest driver since 1961 to be signed with Ferrari. He is still driving for them now, and he is set to remain with them until the 2026 season at least, although I think he'll probably end up extending his contract further because Charles Leclerc is kind of the personification of Ferrari at this point. His journey to the team is a whole other video, as well as his many missed opportunities at a world title himself. 2022 Ferrari, I will never forgive you. Maybe I'll do a Charles Leclerc video. I'm getting off topic. So, here we have two teams, both very clear on their driver plans. One team who will not be looking at the driver market for the foreseeable future, and one who is saying goodbye to a seasoned driver and bringing in a new, exciting talent with youth that they wouldn't normally go for. They're making a statement. This boy's next. It becomes very clear that Leclerc was the obvious choice. And without really being given a second to breathe, Daniel's choices have just shrunk hugely. He wants to leave Red Bull, and the top teams aren't interested. This isn't necessarily the dig it sounds like it is, it's just Formula One. Sometimes the timing just isn't right, and sometimes that's the driver's downfall. From what I can gather, Daniel had discussions with Renault and with McLaren. Whether he spoke to other teams is neither here nor there. He settled on Renault and he signed a 2-year contract.
My dad did that once to a mechanic with a fork.
Now I want to talk about how Max affects the situation. Because he does, and I rarely hear people talking about it. People just say, Daniel should have stayed at Red Bull, and they don't actually look at what was happening at Red Bull at that time. The only comment that sticks out to me that acknowledges both Daniel and Max in the situation is this one from Christian Horner.
Is he making the right career choice? In the end, my assumption is he was running from a fight. That's the way it feels to me.
Now, I don't know if it's just because it's Christian Horner saying that, but I find that to be such an annoying take. It feels like such a small-minded way of looking at the situation, and I'll tell you why. Now, as I've mentioned, Max Verstappen was the next big thing. Max made his F1 debut in Red Bull's sister team, at the time named Toro Rosso, in 2015. He made his intentions in F1 very clear, driving with his now iconic aggressive driving style, and he was noted multiple times for quote-unquote dangerous driving. In 2016, Max was promoted to Red Bull, and although Daniel came in a very strong third behind the Mercedes drivers, it was very clear that Verstappen was coming on strong. He was Red Bull's special project. He was where they were putting all of their time, all of their attention. Now, being with the team and seeing all of the things that we as viewers don't really get to see, here's how I imagine, emphasis on imagine, because I wasn't there, here's how I imagine Daniel's thought process went. He could see that himself and Max were starting to become much closer in terms of race results. Here are their 2017 and 2018 stats respectively. In 2017, Daniel scored 1 win, 1 fastest lap, 0 pole positions, and 9 podiums. He finished 5th with 200 points. Max scored 2 wins, 1 fastest lap, 0 pole positions, 4 podiums, and he finished 6th with 168 points. In the 2017 season, Max outqualified Daniel 13-7. In 2018, Daniel scored 2 wins, 4 fastest laps, 2 pole positions, 2 podiums, and finished 6th with 170 points. And Max scored 2 wins, 2 fastest laps, 0 pole positions, 11 podiums, and finished 4th with 249 points. In 2018, Max outqualified Daniel 15-5. All anyone was talking about was how they wanted Max to be the youngest ever world champion. He actually didn't manage that. Sebastian Vettel still holds that record, but the point is that was the very obvious goal at the time. But they're not going to achieve that if they don't pour all of their resources into Max. So maybe Daniel starts to notice things are being adjusted for Max specifically. Little changes made for Max's benefit. I only make this assumption because past teammates of Max have spoken since about how the car is adjusted and tailored very specifically to him, and that can be very difficult to adapt to if you have quite a different driving style to him.
Everyone has a driving style. I would say my driving style is a bit more on the smooth side, but I like a car that has a good front end, so quite sharp, quite direct. Max does too, but his level of sharp and direct is kind of it's a whole different level. It's eye-wateringly sharp. And to give people kind of maybe an explanation of what that might feel like, I don't know if you guys play computer games at all, but if you bump up the sensitivity completely to the max and you move that mouse and it's just darting across the screen everywhere, that's kind of how it feels. It becomes so sharp that it makes you a little bit tense. And so what ended up happening was, especially during my year, you start off being a little bit behind, but not by much. And then as the season goes on, Max wants this front end in the car. He wants his car to be sharper. And as it goes sharper and sharper, he goes quicker and quicker. And for you to catch up, you have to start taking a little bit more risk. You might be a couple tenths behind one session. Just try a little bit more. Okay, I've gone off. I've had a crash. So then you've got to restart. Then you've lost a little bit of confidence. It takes a little bit more time. That gap's growing a little bit. And then the next time you try and go out and, do another job, another spin or another whatever. And it just starts to snowball.
So Daniel's starting to feel underappreciated in what used to be his team. He was the golden boy, but now it's clear that Max is. He's considering the fact that Red Bull renewed Max's contract the previous year, despite the fact that Max still had longer to run on his current contract than Daniel did at the time. Daniel's not doubting his own talents, but he is doubting that his team has the faith and investment in him that he requires. He comes to the conclusion that if he wants to be a world champion, Max Verstappen cannot be his teammate. Not because he thinks he can't beat him. I can't emphasize that enough. I actually put that in capitals in my notes. It's not because he thinks he can't beat him. It's because he thinks, given the opportunity, Max would be prioritized by the team. Thinking as 2018 Daniel, if in 2019 Red Bull have a car that is capable of winning the World Championship, they're going to want to win with Max. Youngest ever world champion. Done. So, having assessed the situation, Daniel makes the strategic decision to leave. I find it so fascinating that people act like it's such a mystery as to why he would leave Red Bull. I think it makes complete sense, and I think I would have done exactly the same thing. With all due respect, Who on the planet wants to be teammates with Max Verstappen? Name me one person that enjoyed competing against him as a teammate. And if that's not a compliment on his racing skills, I don't know what is. I do feel it's worth noting at this point that Daniel and Max are good friends. I've seen some people act like Max is like a devil spawn and he like forced Daniel out of the team. I think maybe we should all chill. They clearly respect each other hugely within their field and they speak very highly of each other. Whether they're super close friends or just solid colleagues, we don't need to be doing all that. The point is, Daniel's decided he wants to leave. He wants to go somewhere where he feels like his talents are really appreciated and where he feels like he will be prioritised. And he finds that in Renault and Renault team principal, Cyril. I don't think I'm going to attempt his last name, but just know that I love Cyril, and if Cyril has no supporters, then I'm dead. Despite my earlier comment about Renault being quote-unquote a lesser team, Daniel comes at it with a really great mindset. He's going to bring Renault back to the top. He's going to make sure that they're fighting for the top spots. His move takes Christian Horner by surprise, and I think that's why we get the running from a fight comment, among many others. I guess Christian felt like Daniel wasn't loyal to them, which I personally think is a hilarious word to be throwing around in the world of Formula One, especially in a team like Red Bull.
Is it real sweat? It's real sweat. I'm a high performance athlete. Athletes sweat. Sweat, baby. Sweat, sweat.
Now, I'm not going to cover Daniel's time in Renault in quite as much detail as his time in Red Bull. One, because this video is long enough, I think. And two, because I think his movements after he leaves Red Bull are much harder to analyse. I think there are too many variables in the situation to form too concrete of an opinion. He did what he thought was best for him in each stage of his career, and I think only he could really comment on that. So, having said that, his luck from 2018 did appear to follow him into 2019.
Man's had a good moustache. It might be that I'm not able to grow. This is like as far as it goes, so.
What's funny? What's going on here?
He's crying!
Daniel suffered 3 retirements in the first 4 races of the 2019 season. In the race of the 4 that he did complete, he did manage to finish P7 in the points. 6 consecutive race finishes followed, his best result being a 4th place in Canada, after holding off a faster Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas for numerous laps. At the Italian Grand Prix, Ricciardo qualified 5th, and after a spin from Sebastian Vettel, he finished in 4th place, which would be his best result of the year. His teammate Nico Hülkenberg finished that race in 6th, contributing to Renault's best finish since the team returned to the sport in 2016. Ricciardo charged from 16th place to 6th in Japan after an excellent final stint. However, both cars were disqualified from the race 10 days later for using illegal driver aids. Ricciardo ended a relatively disappointing season for Renault in 9th place of the Driver Championship, with 54 points ahead of teammate Hülkenberg, who had 37 points.
Is that a podium, boys? Is that a podium?
That's a podium. Yeah, nice shot, mate.
Daniel had a new teammate for the 2022 season, with Nico Hülkenberg being replaced by Esteban Ocon. This season showed hints of improvements with results. He did start the season with a retirement at the 2020 Austrian Grand Prix after his car overheated, but he finished 8th in the Styrian Grand Prix and the following Hungarian Grand Prix. At the British Grand Prix, he would finish 4th, and that would take him on an 11-race point-scoring streak until the end of the season, starting with the Belgian Grand Prix where he qualified an impressive 4th. After a challenge on Max Verstappen, he would secure his 4th place and set the fastest lap of the race on the final lap. At the Eiffel Grand Prix, I think I'm saying that right, Ricciardo qualified 6th, and after Bottas ahead of him retired, Daniel would eventually secure 3rd place, earning the team's first podium since the 2011 Malaysian Grand Prix. This was Daniel's first podium since joining Renault and his first podium since winning in Monaco in 2018. At the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Daniel impressed yet again with a 5th place in qualifying. From there, he overtook Pierre Gasly on the first lap, before being overcut by Perez after getting caught in traffic. However, a tyre failure and the retirement of Verstappen, and a strategy error by Perez's team Racing Point allowed Daniel to finish in 3rd place, securing his 2nd podium for Renault. At his final race for Renault at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, he qualified 12th. However, a good first stint allowed him to exit the pits in 7th place, and he also took the fastest lap in the final lap of the race. He finished the season in 5th place in the Drivers' Championship with 119 points, 6 points behind Perez in 4th. Now, I realised there was probably a lot going on behind the scenes at Renault. Cyril's last year with the team ended up being 2020, and they rebranded to Alpine and brought in a new team principal for the 2021 season. I realised that when trying to analyse why Daniel left Renault, which he did at the end of 2020, we can't really know if such large management changes were made because Daniel left, or if he saw those management changes coming and decided that he wanted to leave. However, what I will say is that Daniel's 2020 season with Renault was significantly more successful than his 2019 season. The team was really making strides, and while everyone and their mothers likes to debate why he left Red Bull, my interest has always been piqued on why he decided to leave Renault. They could have kept building and improving. When Daniel left, they were on an upwards trajectory. Who knows what they could have achieved if he had stayed and if management had stayed consistent.
Daniel Ricciardo in the lead. Lando Norris has stacked it down the main straight. Here comes Ricciardo. It's going to be
I'm not going to dwell on Daniel's time at McLaren much, if at all. He spent the 2021 and 2022 seasons with the Papaya team with Lando Norris as his teammate. He ended the 2021 season in 8th place of the drivers' standings, scoring 115 points with just one podium, which was his race win in Monza. He ended the 2022 season in 11th place in the drivers' standings with just 37 points. Daniel's struggle to score points in 22 was seen as a leading factor as to why McLaren lost out to Alpine for 4th place in the Constructors' Championship, with the Australian having scored 85 fewer points than his teammate Lando over the 2022 season. He was replaced for the 2023 season by fellow Aussie Oscar Piastri, mentioned earlier, after struggling to adjust to McLaren's car. As I understand it, the general consensus is that Daniel didn't feel hugely supported by McLaren as a team and struggled with his mental health throughout his time there.
I love racing, and it's all I've really ever done and all I've known. I think this is really pretty much my last chance to be back on the grid. I want the seat.
Having been dropped by McLaren, Daniel elected to rejoin Red Bull Racing as the 3rd driver for the 2023 season. This meant he didn't have a seat in F1, he was the reserve. His role saw him complete PR activities, assist in simulator and factory work, and while also attending race weekends, access chat channels and communications to support the race team. On July 11th, 2023, following the British Grand Prix, Daniel drove the Red Bull Racing RB19 for the Pirelli tests, and supposedly his timings actually put him very close to his former teammate Max on the grid. After Nick de Vries was released from his AlphaTauri seat in July 2023, and following his excellent test times, it was announced that Daniel would fill his vacant seat, making his return to Formula 1 at the Hungarian Grand Prix, partnered by Yuki Tsunoda. Just 2 races later, in the second free practice of the Dutch Grand Prix, Daniel broke a metacarpal bone in his hand in 7 places, preventing him from competing for the rest of the weekend.
Sorry, I didn't see the McLaren.
Are you okay? You okay?
I also, my hand.
His injury forced him to miss the next 4 rounds in Italy, Singapore, Japan and Qatar, with Liam Lawson replacing him for all 4 races, but Daniel returned for the US Grand Prix. Ricciardo finished the season in 17th in the drivers' standings, with the 6 points that he scored in Mexico being the only points he scored all season. AlphaTauri, which was renamed RB for the 2024 season, retained Daniel as well as teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Despite a mediocre first half of the season and a lot of rumours that he would be replaced, RB decided to retain Ricciardo following the summer break. Then at the Singapore Grand Prix, speculation rose as to whether he would be dropped from the team following the race. During the weekend, he endured a frustrating qualifying, lining up 16th on the grid. He finished the race in 18th place, while setting the fastest lap on the penultimate lap, supposedly deliberately taking a point away from Lando Norris as he was in battle with Max Verstappen for the championship. Later, Daniel was quite emotional, admitting that it could be his last Grand Prix. A few days later, Daniel was released by RB and replaced with Liam Lawson for the United States Grand Prix and onwards. I personally thought the manner in which Red Bull handled his departure was really disappointing. He got no official send-off at all, he was just dropped. And if you listen to people talking about his last night in the paddock, he stayed in the paddock fairly late into the evening to soak up the environment as much as possible, and then he was gone.
Yeah, the cockpit is something that I got very
very used to for many years. And yeah, just wanted to savor the moment.
Daniel Ricciardo achieved 8 Grand Prix wins, 3 pole positions, 17 fastest laps, and 32 podiums over 14 seasons in Formula 1. He is known for his aggressive driving style, as well as a late braking manoeuvre to engineer overtakes. After the 2021 season, Ricciardo was appointed as a member of the Order of Australia in the 2022 Australia Day Honours for significant service to motorsport as a competitor and ambassador and to the community. He's had a huge amount of bad luck when it comes to car reliability and the timing of signing contracts. However, when the stars have aligned, he has pulled off some incredible drives. Perhaps answering my question at the beginning of the video about why he's had so many chances within the sport. There's no doubt that he is a hugely skilled and dedicated driver. He just sometimes got the short end of the stick, and it had huge consequences for his career. But that's Formula 1, and sometimes things are completely out of your control.
This is Daniel. It's not. That's childish.
I would love to hear your thoughts on Daniel's career and the decisions that he's made throughout. Also let me know if there are any other Formula 1 related things that you want me to talk about. Please subscribe, leave a like, press the bell below to be notified every time that I post, and I will see you in the next one.
200 Grand Prix Daniel speaking to young, naive Daniel. Enjoy the butterflies, I think. Enjoy being naive. Enjoy the nerves, the pressure, people not knowing your name, all that stuff. Because that's part of it. I think if you kind of want to stand on the top from day one, then there's nothing else to look forward to. So yeah, enjoy kind of the process of making a name for yourself, getting faster and faster with each lap, and meeting some great people along the way. So yeah, so a lot of worldly people in this paddock who you can laugh with, learn from, enjoy some moments with. So yeah, embrace the good ones, stay focused. Yeah, you got to the dance in the first place doing what you do, so don't change too much. Don't veer too far off your path. I think just like keep trying to build and grow and learn from yourself, but don't forget what got you here. The parties will come. You don't want that name too early to be like the party guy that is finishing 15th, so they'll come in time, but yeah, earn them, earn the parties, earn the drinks, all that sort of stuff. It shouldn't come for free, no matter what people might convince you with. And yeah, bring friends along, bring family along. Don't assume they'll be a distraction. They might be something to kind of take the weight off your shoulders on a race weekend. They're also people to enjoy the moment with, to celebrate with. So don't be afraid to surround yourself with people that you care about and love, and they're also excited to, I guess, be on this journey as well. So yeah, get after it. Beautiful.